Yes, welcome to bearing. This is such an interesting topic. Many people like talking about it. So before we begin, I would like just to advise there is a link attached in the description that will take you back to how to draw parallel lines. I feel that's a good video that you should start with before you embark on bearing, because knowledge on how to draw using the set square, how to draw parallel lines using the set square is very important if you want to be good at bearing. So that behind us, let us begin on bearing. So these are points I think and I believe are key if you want to be very good at bearing. So we start by looking at the types of bearings. We normally say there are two types of bearing. That is true bearing, and another one we call it the compass bearing. Though true bearing is the most common one, we shall just look at both of them. So true bearing, it has three characteristics. The first one is that directions are given in 3 digits. And these directions I'm referring to as angle measurements. So when dealing with this topic, every time you're talking about direction or when you're talking about the bearing, in actual sense, you're just talking about the angle. So here we have examples like the first one. We don't just say 9, but we write 009 degrees, 014 degrees, and 134 degrees, like that. The second characteristic, all angles are measured from the north, which we call the true north. So if all angles are being measured from the north, then it gives the third characteristic. So it means angles are always measured in the clockwise direction. So it's good to have an illustration just to see how, given a certain direction or given a certain bearing, how can you actually show it on a diagram. So we'll begin with a demonstration on 75 degrees. And remember here you only need to have a geometrical set. So you need to have a protractor, you need to have a pair of compass, ruler, and also you'll need to have a nice sharpened pencil. So how do you show 75 or 0.75 degrees? So the first thing is you draw the north line, because this shall always be the reference. And then now you measure an angle in the clockwise direction, like this, then you draw. So this one now becomes 0.75. So if you are to measure 75, you will turn 75 degrees from the north in the clockwise direction. Then you draw that line like that. Another illustration, how to draw 130 degrees. Again, we'll begin with the north line, and then you measure the angle in the clockwise direction like that. Then you draw that angle, there becomes 130 degrees. Compass bearing. Also, I like to classify it by giving it 3 characteristics, just like the one in true bearing. The first characteristic is that directions are given with reference to either north or south. E.g., we have n 30 degrees east, where n is north. So north 30 degrees east, or s 40 degrees west, etc. Number 2, just trying to give how these angles are actually read. So like when we have n 30 degrees east or E, what it means is when you're measuring, you must have the knowledge of the 4 cardinal points. So you will begin from north, and then you will turn 30 degrees to the east side. Same thing with S 40 degrees west, meaning you will begin from the south line, then you will turn 40 degrees to the west. So the third characteristic here we can talk of, angles used are always acute. So there is no way you can start talking of n 120 degrees east. That does not work. So let's move to illustrations. Now we want to illustrate how these compass bearing are actually drawn. So we start with the first example, n 30 degrees east. How do you show that on a diagram? So for now, let me use the 4 cardinal points, but when you are in an exam, really you only need the north and south line. It will always serve you well. So I'm just putting here east and west so that you may see how we are using N, E, and SW. So here we said we'll start from the north line, then we turn to the east, an angle of 30, then you draw. So that one now becomes N 30 degrees east. B is 40 degrees west. Same thing, we have our 4 cardinal points there, and then we shall now start from south, then we draw. You see, now we are turning to the west. From south we turn to the west. So here we are not really insisting on clockwise or anti-clockwise. We're just now looking at the reference points. It can either be north or south. Then there we have our S 40 degrees to the west. So that is all you need to know when it comes to bearing. Now let us look at a KCSE example, a question that was done in KCSE some years back. So you can read through the question, see if you can try. You pause the video, you give it a try, and then we can play it so that we look at the solutions together. Yes, let's continue now. So it's good to read through the question and understand. The question says a plane leaves airstrip L and flies on a bearing of 040 degrees to airstrip M, which is 500 kilometers away. The plane then flies on a bearing of 316 degrees to an airstrip N. The bearing of N from L is 350 degrees. By scale drawing, determine the distance between airstrip M and N. So most people like using a sketch first and then they do the question. But if you've practiced enough, you can always jump into it and still get the solutions right. So let us look at this. It's good to establish a suitable scale. So for our case, we shall be using a scale 1 centimeter to represent 100 kilometers. So the best thing is to go line by line. So starting from the first line, a plane leaves airstrip L and flies on a bearing of 040 degrees to airstrip M. So you see, we will start by our north line, because if you read through this question, you will notice one thing. Looking at the way the bearings are being written, you will outrightly say this is true bearing. So we will begin from point L, we will mark it out, and then we shall turn 40 degrees. So we will measure the angle 40 degrees and then draw a line. This line is supposed to be 500 kilometers, but if we change that using our scale, we will see that it is giving us 5 centimeters. Then we reach at M. So we just measure the line should be 5 centimeters, then mark a point M. Then while we are at M, now we will also have to draw the north line, or the true north. Remember, those two true north should always be parallel, and that's why I was insisting, if you do not know how to draw two parallel lines, please check out my other video. I have put the link in the description. It will help you to see how to draw parallel lines using a set square and a ruler. So once we have that, we need it there, because remember, angles are always measured from the north. So we need to know that north line so that we can measure our angle like that. That is 316. Now again, a protractor may not be able to measure 316 degrees, but you only need to have a little maneuver. Like for instance, instead of measuring the first semicircle, we know it is 180, so we just ask ourselves, what is the remainder, so that we can reach 316, and then you can get that measurement very well there. Then once you measure that angle, you draw the line. Of course, we are not given the measurement, we will just draw a line, and then we are given the next bearing from L. We are told that the bearing of N from L is 350. So we go back to the first line, we measure 350. So that is an angle that is almost 360. That's why you see it's almost going round. Then we draw our line like that. We mark the point N. So looking at this, you realize all the information has been put in place. Now we have everything we need to answer this question successfully. So we were told to determine the distance between airstrip M and N. So the distance M and N is the one that is in red now. So just measure it. Now if you measure it, of course, it will give you the answer in centimeters. So we need to use the scale up there to change it to give us an actual measurement. So if we are using that scale, we shall just multiply it, our 6.8 by 100, to give us 680, which will now become the distance MN, which is 680 kilometers. So thank you. This is bearing. I imagine it is shorter than what we get in class, but believe me, it has handled everything you need to know. So thank you for watching, and please subscribe to get more videos of this nature.